why everyone has to do sales. Whoa. Don't switch off, please. Don't switch off, because I know what some of you might think now. You think about going on a backyard sale for used cars where someone with a cheesy chat-up line in a polyester suit is going to chat you up, offering you a used car. And of course, they have no clue about the car, but they will tell you it's the best car on earth. That is not sales. This outdated view, however, is very present in people's minds. They often talk about the cheesy car salesman who is not very trustworthy, but in one way or the other suddenly succeeds in selling you a car. Before we get straight into the topic, there are two aspects I have to address right now. So first, I have to say thank you. More than 20,000 people now listen to this podcast. The podcast is available in German or English. My goal was to have 10,000 people who downloaded, listened, forwarded, whatever they did with the podcast. They listened to it one way or the other. And my goal was to have 10,000 people within 1 year. 1 year would be in May. That's in 3 months. And within 9 months, we have more than double the amount of people. 20,000 people. Thank you very much for your trust, and especially thank you very much for your time. The other aspect I have to mention is last week I published a podcast episode which was named Language and Violence. And that podcast episode created, as expected, some reactions. I received some wildly inappropriate emails, and as usual, I guarantee you full anonymity. So if you want to post something like that, or send something like that into my inbox, that's of course your choice. However, it is quite embarrassing when especially the target audience which I address, where I said that the wrongdoing often happens in this area, and of course certain people who exactly come from that decision-making area said, oh, this is all just talking down on us, we're not acting like this, all the discrimination is made up, you just want to feel offended. And just 2 days later, with an international scandal, it was proven that what I said is exactly right. KPMG UK and the chairman, Bill Michael said, so the UK's chairman of KPMG's chairman in the UK said during a town hall meeting that people should stop moaning about COVID-19 and the consequences of COVID-19. That is, of course, what you want to hear when you're probably a single parent and you have to juggle all the different appointments you have to do all the client work, you have to do from home, you of course have to get your billable hours together when you work for a consultancy company, and besides all that, you do homeschooling, you take care of your children probably, maybe you have to look after a parent, or maybe even after more relatives, maybe even after your parents, families, friends, and more people, and then your leader, your boss tells you just stop moaning. And of course, as we all know, it is just as easy for anyone at KPMG as it is for the £1.7 million salary paid Bill Michael, who not only said people should stop moaning, he also said that unconscious bias is, and I quote, crap. That's what he said. I'm not exaggerating. That's the word he used, which is not only extremely un-British to say, especially in a town hall meeting. It is not professional language. You can't get away with telling he's Australian and say Australians are like that, because just telling people I am like that simply shows that you are an amateur when it comes to communication. Also, when you say unconscious bias doesn't exist, it simply means that you deny science. And science deniers, especially in today's climate, these people are not the ones we want to have in a senior leadership position. And of course, people rightfully complained about Bill Michael's behavior, and KPMG then decided, well, officially, Bill Michael said that his position is now, and I quote the Guardian article, his position is now untenable, so he leaves on his free will, while we all know that by doing so, he only removed himself from a position as otherwise KPMG would have removed him. Now there's an official investigation against him going on, an independent investigation started by the law firm Linklaters. Linklaters also had a couple of scandalous headlines in the recent past about partners beating each other up at the Oktoberfest in Germany when this was still running, and one partner even raped an intern and went to jail for, I think, 3 or 4 years. You can look that up from the press. And of course, I don't want to generalize and say all lawyers are bad, but It's just that always the same brands and the same kind of person misbehaves, and then they wonder that there are consequences for their brand. And of course, there are not only bad examples, but communication from leaders is the first part of sales, what you do. When your senior leadership team misbehaves, it automatically and immediately affects the sales performance out there. You immediately will sell less units of whatever you sell. Because people don't like to buy from brands when they see that they don't align with their values. Of course, there are also good examples. So, for example, Zillow's CEO, Rich Barton, Zillow is a rental platform for real estate. He made a very good statement. He said that we now, at the moment where we have the work from anywhere culture, we run the risk that we're going to separate our employees into two categories, the good and the better ones. And the better ones are the ones who in the future will go to the office, and the ones who stay at home either completely or they stay at home more than others are considered like the second-class employees. And we, of course, cannot evaluate the performance of our team members by how often they physically show up in an office when there is no reason why they need to show up. But of course, the risk we have now is when we say, I simply prefer to promote people who show up more often, you immediately give an advantage to anyone who has no children, and by that is more flexible than other people might be who prefer to work from home. So a very good statement, a very proactive statement, and a statement which raises awareness. So, and of course we have other news of last week is that the GOP, the Republicans, cleared Donald Trump, so he will not be sentenced for what he has done. And immediately after they voted not to indict him, and he was cleared of everything he was accused of due to the Republicans' vote. That must be mentioned here. Due to the Republicans' vote, immediately after they did the vote, Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republican Party in the Senate, said that Donald Trump is morally accountable and responsible for what happened. So they give a speech, say he's guilty, and then they vote against him being sentenced. That is the omnipresence of double standards which we now have not only in politics but also in free enterprise. You say something and you just try to get away with it. And now when you have the political affiliation with that party or with Donald Trump or with these people, it will affect your sales to a certain target audience. If you, of course, sell to Trump supporters and you're a Trump supporter, that might work for you. But the future lies in a very diverse society. And when you look especially into younger people's circumstances, they prefer a very diverse future, at least the vast majority of them do. And when you still go down the route of blindly voting for anyone just because they're a party member of XYZ, then you simply have not understood how this statement will affect the sales your people try to do out there. So why do now all the people in your organization have to do sales? So first, there is a significant difference between having a job and having a safe job. And people think they have a safe job because they think I don't have to do anything with sales. So I don't have to bring numbers to the table. I don't have to do sales. And you might have heard the phrase in the past, I don't have to do sales because I work in, and then some department is mentioned. So for example, I work in HR, I don't have to do sales. I work in internal affairs, I don't have to do sales. I work in administration, I don't have to do sales. And these statements are clearly wrong. Every single person, that's, for example, what the international expert, the American expert who now lives in the UK again, Julie Holmes, said, everyone has to sell. And she's absolutely right with that. Why is she right with that? Because as soon as you are not convinced of the product, or if you simply do not care what you actually sell, you just don't even try to care, that means that you're basically only there for the paycheck. And of course, that can be an attitude, but just be sure of the fact that when sales is affected, the people who will be cut first, the people who will lose their job first are not the salespeople out there. Because we still need a sales force, but we might reconsider how many people in internal administration we need. So it is for the sake of your own job security to have an idea of the products you have, to have an idea what your company stands for, to have an idea what you sell. And by the way, sales, again, does not mean to be pushy or sleazy or talk to someone until they finally buy something even when they don't need it. That has nothing to do with sales. Sales is a very professional task based on knowledge and skills. Unfortunately, many people think they are not responsible or not accountable. It is simply not their job. And that is part of the problem. Many people also do not understand that there's a direct connection between selling products and the company's revenue and profit situation and the jobs you have in the company. The last jobs that will be cut are the ones closest to the production of money or the production of the product. When you're somewhere in between, somewhere in administration, something which probably could be automatized, being taken over by some software or given to an external company at the other end of the world and they just do it for half the money, your job is at risk and you can save your job from promoting sales. For example, by mentioning the brand amongst friends you have, for example, to support salespeople more than other people do in the company. So when it comes to job cuts, salespeople will speak up and say, you can't fire that person because he or she is so amazing. He, she, or which gender identity you have. Of course, this is all including every gender identity. This person supports me so much more than anyone else in the department. You cannot fire this person. And that's why sales skills are important for you. There is a lack of understanding that simply believing in the best product will make it is still a rule that applies. And it doesn't. It doesn't. If you look into history, there are many examples for that. So in the tech industry, back in the days, we had USB and FireWire. From the very beginning, FireWire was more stable and way faster than USB. FireWire, Sony was behind it. The rest of the industry went for USB. USB made the cut. So when you go further back in history, so this is the moment where the picture turns black and white to all the younger listeners now. When we talk about video recorders, if you don't know what that is, ask your parents, they probably will know. Video recorder, there were different systems how to put film on a medium. One was VHS, one was Betamax, one was Beta 8. When you have different system in place, and you think the best one will make the cut because VHS was not the best system, but it made the cut because the industry supported it. And when you now think, oh, this changed, it was all back in the old days. So do you think that the iPhone is the most up-to-date, cutting-edge technology? No, it's not. But people often buy based on emotions and not based on logical thinking. And the best product does not mean that it sells well on the market. And this is why sales is so important. And once more, sales is nothing cheesy. Sales is not tricking someone into anything. And sales especially is not pushing someone to buy something they do not need. So how to do better? Because in every podcast, we focus on how to do better. So step number 1, expertise is the foundation of everything. You must have a clue of what you sell. And I can tell you how I learned sales. I worked first in the pharmaceutical industry where I learned it from pharmaceutical consultants. I didn't have a medical background, so it was nice to see the techniques, but I never sold any medication. I was working professional doctors training and doctors training for running their own practice, time management, communication, leadership, etc. After that, I went into the tech industry for the largest Microsoft learning partner, and I flew to Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles, where the franchise headquarters was, I learned sales from the very beginning, which means you must have a very in-depth understanding. You don't have to be the best expert in the world, but you must have an in-depth understanding of what is possible with the product, what is not possible, what you're allowed to promise and what you're not allowed to promise, what you can and cannot promise, because otherwise, and that is never an option, you lie to the client to get the deal signed, and the client will be very upset afterwards, which in today's time simply means that they will go on the internet and officially complain about you. And that will never go well. So the expertise is the foundation of everything. However, you often have people who are the best experts and still the worst salespeople. Why? Because they make things too complicated. When you do sales, it does not mean you have to oversimplify any aspect of the product, but it means that you have to simplify it so non-experts are able to understand it. And that is part of sales skills. You must have an emotional understanding of what the client is looking for. And of course, needless to mention that, diversity is part of the emotional understanding. When you have a brand where senior leadership over and over again has one scandal after another, and most of these communication scandals either go against women or minorities, of course people who are focusing on a world which is diverse will never buy with you, because emotionally they see that you didn't arrive in today's times. So no matter how great your product is, no one will buy with you. Of course you must be a great presenter. Of course you must be a great communicator when you do sales. But these are skills you learn. Some of you have more talent, some of you have less talent, but these are skills which you learn. I was never a born salesman, but I learned sales very well in due course of the years. And one thing you have to serve, and that's the third aspect. So aspect number one is expertise is the foundation of everything. When you have no clue, someone has to hand you clue in generous portions that you get clue, and then you have to simplify the most important aspects too, and that's aspect number two, get the emotional understanding. What does the client want to achieve to then, and that is aspect number three, get an understanding of what Jeffrey Gitomer, professional speaker from the United States of America, he always says it's WIIFM, W-I-I-F-M, what's in it for me? And often salespeople present to the client in a way that you stand in front of them and say, oh, this is what I want to say. This is our company's history. This is our CEO. This is how the whole company was, blah, blah. People sit there and think, this is not relevant to me. What does the product do for me? I don't care about your founders from 1820, mostly two men with long white beards. I don't have these people in the office. What does your product do to make my life easier? And often people do not understand how to present properly. They talk about something they want to say, and they should better focus on what the client needs and wants to hear. By the way, both of it. There are aspects that the client wants to hear, and there are aspects which the client needs to hear. And by the way, my company, I come from a very small village in Germany, northern Germany, and English is not my first language, as you can hear by this charming German accent. I was not a born communicator. I didn't go to private education. I learned all of that by hard training. And hard doesn't mean it must be uncomfortable. It is just work you have to invest. I learned to sell and to grow my company to the international size it is today. I am booked around the world to deliver sustainable leadership training. And one part of sustainable leadership is to deliver sales. Sales is a skill that every person has to master, and again, without being cheesy, without being pushy, and without annoying people. So get the expertise, get the emotional understanding, and then understand what is the WIIFM, as Jeffrey Gitomer said, the what's in it for me, that the client is really interested in, because just having the best product in today's market is not enough. And especially in today's times where you know that not every organization is going to make the cut after the end of the pandemic, it is even more important that every single person in your organization is able to do excellent sales. Happy to talk with you about that. Just drop me an email and we get into the discussion. Had great discussion during the last week, so happy to talk with you. Just drop me an email. My email address is in the show notes of this podcast. I wish you for this week now all the best when implementing these steps in your organization. And for this week, thank you very much for your time.